Welcome to the Physician Wealth Med podcast. It's wealth medicine for doctors. If you're a doctor and you have no time, it looks like you found us just in time. This podcast is for all doctors who would like to work on their personal wealth, but do not have traditional hours to do so because they have no time. We're here to jump into topics that will help you address your wealth both inside and outside of your practice so that you can live the life of significance you're dreaming of. You'll hear from your peers, you'll hear from industry professionals, and your host and wealth advisor, me, Kevin Sullivan. This is your time. Now let's get started with today's podcast. Doctors, make sure you check out the book that Susan wrote, 9 Steps to a Rich Life Retirement, Live Well, Give Back, Leave a Legacy. And also the book that Marianne wrote, Your Happiness Portfolio for Retirement. You'll be glad you did. Now let's get on to our podcast. Welcome to Physician Wealth Med Podcast. We have another great podcast for you today, and we say Physician Wealth Med Podcast is wealth medicine for doctors. We're so excited to have Susan Latremoille and Marianne Oehser with us here today from Next Chapter Lifestyle Advisors. So welcome to the podcast. We understand that you're joining us from Melbourne, Australia right now, and then also Huntsville, Alabama. So there you have it. And I'm in Buffalo, New York. So there's a big wide spread there. What time is it over there where you're at right now in Australia?
It's 5 to 8 in the morning.
Yeah, and we're recording this around 4 p.m. So she's already there bright and early. I hope you had a cup of coffee. Well, doctors, we really wanted to get this information out to you. And once again, our main goal here on this podcast is to give you relevant content that you can help build your wealth inside and outside of your practice. We've got some very special guests here today to talk about what's next, what happens after you retire, what to look for. And it's not always about the money. And I think you're going to see that as we go through this podcast here today. But just a little bit about Susan. Susan spent over 35 years as a wealth advisor, assisting clients to financially plan for their retirement. She saw a common thread among her clients. Having enough money to retire was only a piece of the retirement puzzle. It was the non-financial side that had the greatest impact on the predictability of a successful retirement. And Susan is a partner in Next Chapter Lifestyle Advisors. She's also a certified Success Finder practitioner. And Success Finder is a powerful assessment that helps clients be clear about what motivates them for their lifestyle priorities. She's also a family enterprise advisor, FEA, and holds an executive MBA. She's the author of The Rich Life, Managing Wealth and Purpose, and it's not just about the money. See, I told you it's coming. Marianne Oehser, she has retired twice, so not once, but twice over the last 40 years in the corporate world. She brings a tremendous amount of experience to what she does. She founded Traditional Retirement Unfulfilling and started Retire and Be Happy. She is a seasoned retirement and relationship expert committed to helping people create a happy, fulfilling post-career phase of their lives through her workshops, seminars, public speaking, and individual coaching. Marianne is a partner in the Next Chapter Lifestyle Advisors as well. She's a certified retirement and relationship coach. Marianne holds a master's in management from Northwestern University Kellogg School of Management in Chicago, and she's the author of Your Happiness Portfolio for Retirement. It's not about the money. So if that's not a nice introduction, man, this is great. This is the kind of talent and expertise we have here on this podcast. So I wanted to welcome you here again. So welcome.
Thank you, Kevin. Great to be here with you.
Thank you. I don't know who wants to go first, but tell us who you are, what you're doing as a company, and how you formed the company, how you got together, and tell us your story real quick.
Sure. I'll be happy to start off that, Kevin. As you mentioned in my intro, I was a wealth advisor for over 35 years. And as I helped my clients prepare for retirement and beyond, I noticed that many of them were not as happy as they thought they would be when they entered retirement. And I thought, if I'm a holistic wealth advisor, why don't I consider not just having enough money for retirement, but also what life entails? So that led me in 2019 to sell my wealth practice and dedicate the next part of my career to working with wealth advisors, financial advisors, and their clients on the non-financial aspects of this retirement transition. Fast forward, I became a certified professional retirement coach, and through that met my now business partner, Marianne Oehser, and together we formed Next Chapter Lifestyle Advisors in the beginning of 2020. So that's a little bit about me, and Marianne has a different but great story as well.
Yes, thank you.
When I retired the second time 13 years ago, I knew I needed to go to something. And so for a year before I retired, I studied relationship coaching and really, really enjoy that aspect. And I found at that time I lived in Naples, Florida, which is an affluent community and many retirees. And so many of the couples that I spoke to that had come to me because they were having relationship problems said the same thing. They used to have a great relationship, but now it just was not. And they didn't understand why. The common denominator was retirement, which led me to get another certification as a retirement coach. And so today I enjoy working with clients to help them through the transition as they leave whatever it was that they did professionally and move into this next chapter of their life and make sure it doesn't ruin their relationship.
That is key. You both just unpacked a whole hour's worth of podcast content right in your opening statements. It is so true, because a lot of times we think we're retiring from something, but a lot of times you get more excited when you can retire to something and into something that's your passion and what you're looking to do moving forward. And a lot of times, as you well know, our identity was all built up and based on what we did pre-retirement and what are we going to do afterwards. This is one of the massive reasons why we wanted to have these two here to talk about these things, because we know you face these challenges. So I don't know who wants to go first, but would you care to elaborate a little bit more on that? Because I know you both are authors, you have books, which is great, but however you want to take this, I'm going to leave this as an open discussion for you, and tell us about how you get your people to recognize what you're doing and move them in through your process.
Well, I would say that some people are faced with a real struggle when they retire, and you touched on one of the main points, Kevin, when you talked about identity. And I would say that's especially true for medical professionals and physicians, because so much of who they are is wrapped up in having that doctor prefix in front of their name. And that commands, usually from their patients, from the public, from their communities, a tremendous amount of respect and admiration for the work that they do. So many physicians, we find, build their identity on the work that they do. And when they step away from that profession, that career in medicine, they're faced with that problem of identity. Who am I now? And that can lead to some real issues for people as they step away from what they've been doing for sometimes 20, 30, sometimes 40 years. Marianne, what would you add to that?
That the issue of losing your identity is true for many successful people, business owners and corporate executives. But as you say, Susan, it's particularly true for doctors. And it's not just the status that they lose, if you will, but it's also the emotional commitment that they have to their patients and to their profession. And it's very, very personally deep, and deeper, I think, than most other professions. And so in addition to the societal status that they're losing, it's also that purpose that they have in their life for all that they're doing to help their clients and the medical community. So it's true that is something that needs to be addressed. Or unfortunately, I've worked with people who did not address it before they came to us, and they were suffering. And we'd certainly hate to see anybody that's listening to this podcast go through what I've seen some people go through by not addressing it.
Yeah, I was just going to pick up on the word that Marianne used, of purpose. And, with doctors, their purpose is so amazing, how they help people regain health, how they help people recover from surgeries and so on. And so that's a very, very powerful purpose. And when doctors move away from their profession, then that sense of purpose can often just go by the wayside. And then they're left saying, well, what's the reason I get up in the morning now? What's the purpose for my life now that I'm not healing people, that I'm not helping people with their health? And so purpose and identity, I think, are the two key areas that we've covered so far. But let's not leave it at that, because there actually are other areas that people struggle with, which again causes them to seek help. And I should point out here that there's often a stigma associated with getting help. People feel, well, if you have to turn to a therapist, if you have to turn to an advisor or a coach or a consultant of some sort, there's something wrong with you. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because we know that all successful people in whatever fields of endeavor have coaches. So that whole sense of seeking help almost has a stigma attached to it. And it shouldn't, because we recognize that moving into retirement is one of the top 10 stressors in life that people face. It's right up there with job loss, divorce, death of a partner, death of a family member. And retirement is on that top 10 list. So it's not something that we should be taking lightly, but it is something that causes a lot of people to, in effect, suffer in silence, because they're afraid to seek help. They're afraid that their friends are going to say, aren't you the lucky one? You're retired. And actually, they're not feeling that at all.
I'd like to build on one thing that you said, Susan, and that is that coaches and therapists are different. And a therapist usually is someone that you go to when you have a problem that needs to be fixed. A coach is someone who helps to guide you to understand clearly what your goals are and what your dreams and visions are, and then help you to move forward so that you can achieve them. So it's a very forward-looking, not problem specific, but more of a, how do you build this life that you really want to live in a way that at the end of the day you say, wow, best part of my life.
And that's the exciting part. You would think that should get you rejuvenated and ready to roll in retirement, because they're so used to people coming to them, asking them advice, and they're the caregiver, they're the advice giver, they're the prescriber, if you will. And now they're on the other side where it almost feels like the table is flipped, and they're living in silence going, man, I've got this anxiety that I just don't even know what to do with. And then it spills out into all the other relationships that are around them. Give me an example of maybe someone that you've worked with, or you started to work with, and you heard their story and said, man, I can fix you. If you just come in and just have a session with us, we can really turn it. Do you have any stories like that maybe some of these doctors could resonate with?
Yes, we have lots of stories. One of them is a man who had been very, very successful in his career, and his career ended abruptly with no notice whatsoever. And he fell into a very deep depression, so deep that for him success was being able to get out of bed by 3 p.m. and read the newspaper. But what he did, he recognized that this was not acceptable. He loved to sail, and he never went out on a sailboat. He never did any of the things that he used to love to do. But when he went through the process that we help people go through, which is to get clarity on what it is that they want this time of their life to look like, and to build a plan so that they have a vision and they can see tangible things that they can do to move forward to achieve the things that will make them feel like they are whole again, that they are living an exciting life. And in this particular case, the man went through that, and he uncovered a past interest that he had, and that was writing. And he, explored it. He took some creative writing classes, and the more he did that, the more alive he became. And as he did that, he uncovered he pursued an interest that he'd always had, which was to write a book. Well, today I can tell you he has written and published 2 books, and now he goes on speaking circuits to promote his book, and he gets involved in the community in ways he never would have gotten involved with before, as he's talking about his book. And he has just changed his life so dramatically. He bought a new sailboat, and he goes sailing all the time. So
did he really?
He changed it, totally changed his life around.
And that's the exciting part. See, that's where we want everyone to get to. And that's how working with you as a team can really bring value that they don't even know they're going to get yet. But when they experience it and they're on the other side of it, wow, what a story they have to tell.
I have another one that I think applies to doctors, and that is, I know I know for a fact because I've worked with some doctors, including one of my brothers, who they want to retire, but they're afraid of it. They just don't know how to move forward. They're just reluctant to do it. And this particular person was a business owner, a very successful business owner. And he was afraid to retire. And he was actually referred to me by his financial advisor. And first time he sat in my office, he kind of plopped down and he said, "I'm not sure why I'm here. I've only tried this 8 times. I don't think I can retire. What's different this time?" Well, the process was what was different. And that was about 6 or 7 years ago. And I still get a greeting from him at the holiday time saying about how this is the best time of his life. And if he hadn't gone through that process, he would not be living the life that he's living today.
Absolutely. No, wow, what a great story. How about you, Susan? Do you have anything like that?
Yeah, well, we've worked with some amazing people who have discovered passions that have lain dormant for years. Marianne mentioned the gentleman that turned to writing.
Right.
I have a story about an executive who used to play in a band when he was a teenager, and his career got in the way of him continuing his music. And so he just let it all go. And then when he retired, he rekindled his love of playing in a band and writing music. And today, his whole life revolves around performing and writing and the tours that he does and so on. So it's so possible to go back to something, either whether it's writing or music or sports or an activity or something that you did earlier in life, but may have gone to the back burner because career has taken your time and your energy and just not left you with the freedom, let's say, to pursue those interests. So that's a case of people going back to something, but we also have people that go on to discover new things that they never contemplated that they would ever do before. So that's the exciting part. And as Marianne mentioned, it's really all about going through a process. These things don't just sort of, you wake up one morning and it's all there. It's like anything else. You have to put a bit of input into it in order to achieve that kind of success and enthusiasm about what's next.
Yeah, I remember when I first got into business, it said the future belongs to those who prepare for it. That's a really old phrase, but I remember that it's guided my career the whole time. And when you can do something with intentionality, with proactivity, I often say that nothing reactive usually turns out well at all. But everything that you do that's proactive, that's got some intention behind it, now you're talking, because now you can really start to see where things could be versus where you're at. And one of the biggest risks, whether you're talking about money or not, is the danger of staying where you're at. If you take time to look at what's available, what are your passions like that? I'm also a musician. You can't see it here, but right in my office, I have 2 keyboards. I have a guitar and a bass. I've been to Nashville. It's my passion to do that. I'm pretty sure that at some point for me too, music will even be even more part of what we're doing.
You touched on something that's very important, and that is the intentionality part.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people think that this next chapter of their life is just going to sort of magically unfold the way that they want it to. And they don't make intentional decisions about the kinds of activities and the people that they want to have in their life. And often what happens then is at some point they say, I'm missing something. I mean, I'm busy, but for what? I'm just kind of doing whatever it is that comes along, as opposed to specifically deciding what I want in my life. And so that takes some planning. That takes some thought.
It does.
And I would just add to that too, that Kevin, you will know all too well with the financial work you do, that no one would ever enter the retirement years without a good financial plan and knowing how much they can spend, how much their estate's going to be worth. And that's the financial advisor's job, to really crunch those numbers and give people that information and the advice and have them have a comfort level about it. And yet somehow people magically think that they don't need a plan for their retirement. Well, I'd offer to say that having the lifestyle plan is the fundamental basis on which the financial plan should be based. Because sometimes people do have expensive hobbies, expensive tastes, in interests. And has that all been factored into the financial plan? So really, I believe as a financial advisor today, it's so important to make sure that clients have a good lifestyle plan so that you can do a proper financial plan.
Hey, let's talk about your books. There's one that you wrote, 9 Steps to the Rich Retirement, Life Retirement. Could you expound? How are you using that in your practice, and also your happiness portfolio for retirement? How are you using your books in the work that you do?
Sure, I'll go first then, because my book is 9 Steps to a Rich Life Retirement. Live well, give back, leave a legacy is kind of the subtitle to it. I've always had this concept of a rich life in the back of my mind. The philosophy of living a rich life is not just who has the most money, but what is the richness that life has to unfold for the person. So I've defined it into like this little short mantra: live well, give back, leave a legacy. The live well part can really be however you interpret it. For some people, it is about having a home and a country home, or it could be just having a great family. It doesn't have to be financial, but each person defines living well in a different way. I think giving back is so fundamental to our happiness as well. So that's the second part of the rich life mantra, is giving back, whether that's sharing knowledge, expertise, mentoring, volunteering, or financial. In some way we give back. And then we find as people get older, they start to think about how they want to be remembered when they're no longer here. We all read obituaries and see, wow, that was an amazing life that that person led. So we start to think about, how do I want my legacy to be? Again, doesn't have to be the endowment of a hospital wing. It can be something as straightforward as, let's raise a good family, bring great children and grandchildren into the world. But what is my legacy? So when I started the book, I broke it down into these 9 steps. And the first step, and this would be near and dear to your heart, Kevin, is ensure you have adequate financial resources. It's so important to have shored up those finances before you retire, because in many cases, you don't get a second crack at it.
Yeah.
And then we build on to that with the other 8 steps, which are all included in the book. The foundation really for a rich life is the 3 areas: live well, give back, leave a legacy. But I'm going to ask Marianne now to elaborate, because her book is really the key to implementing this whole rich life philosophy.
Very good.
Yeah. I knew that when I was working with people that I needed some kind of a process, a framework within which that they could work. And so that's where the happiness portfolio concept was born. And the graphic that we use to describe it, it is a circle. And the circle includes 8 non-financial areas of your life. And I'll come back to that in just a moment.
Sure.
So with this circle sits on a platform of a rich life, because that is the foundation, if you will, for how you want to design your happiness portfolio. Then in the center is purpose, because purpose is such a fundamental human need that when we don't have it, even in retirement, when we don't have it, you feel like you are baseless. In fact, Richard Leider, who is a real expert in the whole area of purpose, says people that don't have purpose have inner kill. It's the art of dying without even knowing it. I mean, how many people do you know that are grumpy and crabby and just simply unhappy about everything? I'll absolutely guarantee you that they don't have a sense of purpose. And so the other 8, for each of the other 8 non-financial areas, what the book talks about is each one of them in a way that you understand what you want in your next life in that area. What is it going to take for it to be a 10 in satisfaction? How much of your time do you want to invest? What is the vision for what you want each of those areas to be like? And what are the action steps that you're going to take to make it happen? And I wrote the book because that was the process that I was using when I was working with one-on-one coaching clients. But I know that coaching isn't for everybody. And so it was really intended as a do it yourself, if you will. So if you don't want to work with a coach, that this is a resource that you can use. There are exercises in it, and it describes each of those 8 areas and provokes your thinking about what it is that you might want to consider for that area of your life.
That's excellent. And I can see where that would go hand in glove with what you're doing. And especially if you wanted to just describe the type of work that you do, here's the book that they can read. They can come back to you with questions from it as well. And that's huge. So kudos. We're going to make the links available for this book too. If any of you listeners would like to pick up a copy of this, we'll make sure we have the appropriate links so that you can take care of that too. Wanted to move on into the piece that you have called Navigating the Retirement Landscape. We've been touching on some of that already, but is there anything you wanted to add to that?
I do, because again, I think I found when I first started this work that people had a misconception of what this stage of their life was going to look like. You know, in the past, the landscape that you were looking at really had 2 phases. You retired, and then you had leisure, and then you died. But that's not the way that it is anymore. And so the paper, Navigating the New Landscape of Retirement, talks about the fact that there are 5 stages to this life that we are encountering. And so when some people start retirement, they have this misconception that, you know, the best is over and it's all downhill, and all I'm not going to do is age, and it's going to be terrible. But the real picture of that is old age doesn't come until stage 5. You've got much more to travel through on this journey before you're just focused on the end of your life. And so it helps people to see, because I found that when people have a picture of where they're going, that it's much easier to make decisions. And right. One of the big ones is, in the beginning, it starts with a great honeymoon. Everybody is exhilarated about being free from all the stress and all of the things that they were ready to give up. And that is a fantastic, wonderful time of the journey. But it ends. And so many people get into trouble because they figured that when they started this journey, this honeymoon was going to last for 30 years. But it's not sustainable. Yeah. And research tells us it lasts somewhere between 6 and 18 months. And when it's over with, then people say, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? Maybe I shouldn't have retired. Maybe it's because my relationship is bad that I feel this way. And so the purpose of understanding the landscape is to know that when that honeymoon ends, it's not the end of the journey, that there's a transition period that you'll go through, but that will end too. And so having that picture makes it much easier to deal with what happens and what unfolds in your life as you move through this next chapter of your life.
Wow. That is so incredible. Just for me, I've been in the business a long time like you prior to doing this as well. And I'm thinking, man, we get so excited and we live our whole careers thinking it would last a little bit longer than 6 to 18 months. In our minds feel like, oh, that's going to be 6 to maybe 10 years worth. It's that honeymoon period that gets you all excited, but yet it's got such a short life. Therefore, purpose. The other thing that I try to tell our clients and show them is the longevity of it. Everybody seems to have 65 to 75 taken care of, but what about the second phase, 75 to 85, 85 to 95? Our oldest client's 102 and a half years old, will be 103 in July, still has adequate amount of money to keep her going. We've seen what those decades look like. And if you plan for each decade, how nice is that just to lay it out so they can visually see that this is your life expectancy, or you could possibly live this long. Not only does the money need to last, but your purpose needs to last, which is huge.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. I'm just going to make the point that just because the honeymoon stage is short-lived in the beginning doesn't mean that that's the end of the happiness part of it. Right. It means that reality sets in a different way. Yeah. And so that it's important to make sure that your life is filled with the things that give you happiness, that bring you joy, that make you excited about getting up in the morning. And then that can last for 30 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Very nice. Anything to add, Susan, on that?
Yeah, I would just say that, in recent years, people have been very focused on the blue zones as examples of how people should live a long and healthy life. And I don't know your 102-year-old client, but I would imagine that she embraces a lot of the elements of the blue zones. She probably has wonderful friends, maybe family that are surrounding her. She has engagement in her community, no doubt. I'm sure she takes care of herself by eating well and hopefully doing some exercise, even if it's gentle exercise at this stage in life. So she probably embraces a lot of those lessons from the blue zones by having this kind of longevity. Kudos to her for making it this far and obviously having a reason to get up in the morning.
Her son picks her up and they go to Texas Roadhouse every Wednesday. What a great life. What a great person she is. And longevity. No one would have ever thought it, but here you are, right? 102 and a half. So
it's amazing. I have another longevity story just real quickly. There was an article in USA Today that appeared earlier in January, and it was written by a woman named Nancy Schlossberg. Well, it turns out that Nancy Schlossberg actually was my mentor for many years in this area. And she's an expert in adult transitions. And she is 96 years old. And at 96, she's still writing articles for USA Today.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah. So it's possible when you plan your life so that it's filled with the things that keep you joyful, it's possible to live to 102 and a half.
It is.
Happily live to 102 and a half.
Tell us about as we bring this to a little bit of a close, the client education services that you have, because I was very impressed when I was looking over that information. Do you care to elaborate on that and what some of the doctors could learn from this?
Susan, you want to go?
Sure. We put on webinars, usually through financial advisors, and they can also be live events. They don't have to always be virtual, but for some people that's more convenient, where we like to educate people about different aspects of retirement. Our first webinar, usually if we're doing a series, is 3 Secrets to a Happy Retirement. We have a webinar on retirement for couples, how to prevent retirement from ruining your relationship. We have a webinar that's geared towards women, because oftentimes women have a different journey than men when they enter retirement. So we point out some of the challenges and opportunities that are unique to women. We have a webinar on flying solo, so aging and retiring alone, whether you're single, divorced, widowed, whatever. But, it's different navigating this stage of life when you're on your own. And then, of course, we share the happiness portfolio and we delve into those 8 areas to make sure that this time of life is in fact the happiness. And that's why we call it the happiness portfolio. So these are client-facing webinars, usually put on by their financial advisor. We've had great response to them. People say, I hear a lot about from my financial advisor about what's going on in the economy and interest rates and the markets, but it's really refreshing to hear from my advisor about some of these non-financial aspects of retirement. So that's part of our client education series.
And Susan, you actually left one out that is most applicable to the doctors, and that's the challenges of highly successful people.
Yes.
Because I experience people who, like doctors and professional people and business owners and corporate executives, are the people that have the most difficult making that transition into the next time of their life. Mm-hmm. And in addition to things that normal people have, it's some of the things we've already talked about that are particularly difficult for people that have been highly successful.
No, that's fantastic. We'd like to make all of these available to the doctors too that want to check in on their own. What does it mean to you? It's nice to know that those are out there, but as a doctor listening, what do these things mean to you? Is your wheel turning as you're listening to this conversation? What are you writing down right now? Play it again. I would encourage you to go through this podcast again and just write down some of the things that jogged a memory for you so that you can get more proactive. You can put more time into thinking of the person that you want to be once you do transition into this new landscape for yourself. I think this has been a very great session here with you and you both. So I appreciate it. Any final words you'd like to say, either one?
I would just say that if anyone wants to discuss their situation a little more in person, to feel free to contact us through the website. And our books are both available on Amazon, and they're available both in print and in audio version. So I'd say pick up the books and start thinking seriously about your next chapter. And if you need some help, we're here to take you through it.
Absolutely.
And I would only add that no matter how great your life has been up until now, this next chapter truly can be the best part of your life.
And there you have it. Susan, Marianne, thank you so much. You have heard from experience. You've heard from voices of experience that have walked your shoes. They've seen what you haven't seen yet. They can guide you to where you need to go. So I just want to thank you again for being part of this podcast today. Maybe we could do another session together sometime and go a little bit deeper. How would that be?
Sure.
That'd be great.
All right. Well, thank you very much. This concludes this episode of the Physician Wealth Med podcast. It's Wealth Medicine for Doctors. That's our podcast for today. And remember, if you're not working on your personal wealth, who is? Please share this podcast with your friends and colleagues, and make sure you subscribe, like, and share. Any questions about what you heard today, please send an email to kdsullivan@lpl.com. Physician Wealth Meds, Wealth Medicine for Doctors.